Looking for an easy-to-use glue-on adhesive that truly goes the distance, from shoeing to major repair? Only Equilux is strong enough to stand up to everyday wear and tear, yet remain flexible for easy filing and shaping, even nailing. To handle all your repair jobs from patching quarter cracks to major hoof wall reconstruction. Equilux. Tough, flexible, easy to use. Because a horse is only as good as its foot.
So I remember on the morning of 9/11, what was going on, and you tried to call Mike and you couldn't get him on the phone, and you called me in the office and said, "What the heck is going on here?" So tell us about this experience.
Yeah, well, that was not a fun experience.
No.
We had ridden back out of the mountains on the 10th. We spent the night at the hotel, and early on the morning of the 11th, I had a very early flight.
What airport?
Reno.
Reno.
I was in Reno. We flew in and out of Reno. And Reno at the time was really tiny. And it looked sort of like this. There was no televisions, no nothing. You're just sitting in this little gate area. There was maybe 3 or 4 gates. So you have no idea what's going on. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning, and they start boarding, okay? Maybe it's 5:30, whatever it was. Anyway, we're boarding on the plane, and back in the day, they loaded first class, and then they would start you in the back of the plane. And because I'm cheap, I was sitting in row 16,005 or something. I was against the back wall, okay? And the flight attendant was back there. There was a bathroom there, and there was people across from me. We were the very last row in this plane. And the whole plane's getting on and on and on. We're sitting, and we're waiting, and it gets to be, 6 o'clock. I can't remember the exact timing of when the planes had crashed, but all of a sudden, we look out, and the luggage is coming back off the plane. And we're like, you've got to be kidding me. You know, what is going on? It was my husband's birthday, who wasn't happy because the 2 previous years I had been on pack trips on his birthday, and I promised him I was going to be home. So I waiting along, and so talking to the flight attendant, well, everybody in front of me is getting off the plane. And she said, all we know is there was a plane crash in New York. So we no clue I don't know why that affects Reno, but whatever. So everybody's getting off the plane, and by the time I get off the plane, all those people in front of me in the plane are in line trying to rebook tickets. And so I walked over to a phone bank, because again, no cell phones back then. I picked up the phone. I had to wait in line. Finally, it's my turn. I tried to call Mike, and they kept putting me on hold. Again, you have no idea. You're clueless what's going on. So I thought, well, I better call Frank and tell him I might be late tomorrow because something's happening here. So I got through to the reception, or whoever it was who answered then, and I said, hey, can I talk to Frank? And you picked up the phone and you said, where are you? I go, I'm at the airport in Reno. Things don't look good. My flight was canceled. And all of a sudden he goes, holy cow, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we had a television on in my office.
And I said, no, I have no idea. Again, we were completely isolated. And I guess my reaction there, because people stopped and they started saying to me, what's going on? And I'm going, well, there's a plane crashed into the World Towers, the World Trade Center, and while I was talking to you, a plane hit the Pentagon right after, just at that point. That's how long that process had taken. And I'm like, I don't understand this. It doesn't, clearly something has to be wrong, because this doesn't even make sense. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I had already checked out of my hotel. And of course, all those people in front of me now have checked into the hotels. So there's going to be no hotel rooms. And luckily I was with, like I said, Dave Willis and them. And Dave said, no problem, I'm taking you back to Oregon with me.
Well, Dave got a few miles up the road and turned around.
No, they hadn't left.
Oh, they hadn't left yet?
No, because this was like at 6, 7 in the morning,
Okay.
whatever. And Hank McEwen had said, no, we can't leave her there, because they, of course, knew what was going on. He said, we can't leave her, we have to go get her. So they came over. There were, somehow or another, they had came to the airport. They didn't know where I was at. But Hank had asked the airport people, listen, does she have to fly back home out of Reno, or can she go anywhere? And at that point, they said, we don't care. Whatever she can do to get home is fine with us. We don't care. We'll honor wherever she's from. So I got on the little shuttle, went back to the hotel, and as I got there, of course, Hank's running around all wild looking for me. I said, nope, you're coming with us. I've already talked to them and cleared it. You're coming with us. So I got in a truck in Reno and drove all the way up to Portland, Oregon with them and stayed with, as it turned out, 4 days, was it? Because I got home Friday night. I guess 3 days up there. But yeah, that was crazy, intense.
And you had somebody else on the trip. The former Cornell Farrier was with his daughter, wasn't he? And
yeah, Rita, I can't think of his name, Bud.
I can't either. But they rented a car and drove home.
Yeah, and they felt really bad about that because they said if we had known, we would have dropped you at home. And Lee Green, of course, he said, I would have taken you back to my place because my brother lived out in that area at the time, but it was fine. And it was great because I got to spend some time with Dave Willis, and Jeanette Carlson was also stranded. She was there with us. So we hung out and had a great little visit. I got to tour his shop. So, you sort of like when you have your first kid, you don't know what you don't know about this kid, and it's going to cry. Why is it crying? It was a similar type of thing. We brought this magazine into the office. Frank said to me, oh, by the way, you're going to start going on press runs. Okay, what's that? I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, things just started happening like that. So we started just slowly, I think, figuring it out, just day by day, figuring out what needed to be done. And then we used to, I don't know, just whatever would come up, we would just figure it out. We would talk, a lot of talking out things, because that's how we figured stuff out. And then brainstorming about stuff, a lot of brainstorming. And
well, Pam and I knew a little about the magazine business, but we hired a lady that didn't even know how to sell ads. She didn't have any bad habits because she hadn't sold ads.
Well, and it's interesting to me because the one thing I think I learned throughout that process was, like we've had Ryan Dorn and stuff in here and whatever, and it drove me crazy because he's always promoted, when you go to sell ads, you can give them a discount for multi-this, you can give them a discount for this, give them a discount for that. And I think to myself, why am I giving somebody my money? They don't need, either our ads are overpriced or I'm just giving away money I don't have to give away. I don't believe in giving a discount for everything. So, if you want to advertise 6 times, yep, it says so right on the card. There's your 6th time thing. And that's how I sold things. So if there was going to be any kind of a special, like, I can't remember the horse that won the Kentucky Derby, and something happened with Life Data Labs. Do you remember what it was? Something was going on. And anyway, we talked, just chatted about these things. And Frank says, well, this is a good opportunity for Life Data Labs. So I called up Life Data Labs, explained to them why it was a good idea, because we chatted about it. And they ran a spread right to the centerfold of the magazine because we talked about it. So I don't think we were afraid of discussing all kinds of options, kicking things around and figuring out what would work and what wouldn't work. And we just didn't have a set of rules. I wasn't really big on emails. Well, there wasn't many at first, but the advantage of talking to the person is you can paint a verbal picture. You could say, listen, look at this, and your excitement shows through. This horse won the Kentucky Derby. He was wearing your horseshoe. He was, whatever it would be. You could just talk to them about it and explain. Email, there's just no emotion. You don't get it. So, and aside, then I could talk to them about their dog, their grandkid, something else as well. Just always more, just more information. So I always found talking to people worked a whole bunch better. It was one thing to blast out an email about this is what's coming, but you really needed to talk to people to figure it out. And I think one of my worst problems, particularly at the end, was I kept forgetting to do it in a stupid program you guys had. I was so used to making notes and writing them down, so I would have it quickly that I could refer to about things. And that was a switch for me because it changed. The industry changed. A lot of stuff changed.
Alice, several times the business practices survey for Farriers showed that the Life Data Labs thing was sky high. Their product was used for this. And Alice would take that information and get them to buy a spread that said, hey, we're the #1 product in this area. I mean, we had another magazine that we eventually sold in the rural builder field. And you were talking earlier about going to Europe with your daughter and everything, and how somebody was going to go with her, and they quit before the trip took place. So we had somebody like that, and we had hired somebody, and
This is at Rural Builder.
yeah, on Rural Builder, and about 6 weeks before the conference, she said she wasn't go. She was going to leave and go to the not go to the meeting.
She was pregnant.
Is that what it was? Okay. And so we interviewed Alice, and Pam and I interviewed her. Real reason we hired her was to get the Real Builder Show going, which, and during the interview, she talked about Girl Scout troops and going to California and getting free boarding at military bases and free food. And Pam and I looked at each other and said, "We're hiring you."
It was really funny because it was right after Christmas. I had decided I had worked that fall through a temp agency because my kids were younger. I didn't really want to be working full time. It was going to be a good fit to find a part-time job, and I worked at the American Lung Association. So it was nice to go. But they tried to hire me full time, and I said, no, I don't want to work full time. So I happened to open up the magazine right after the holidays, and there's this little tiny ad that said part-time office help or something. I was like, oh, I can do that. So I sent off a little resume, and I thought I had owned a ceramic studio, and I had taught classes in my basement, and I had I did the 4-H kids, and I had my little that was my experience. Oh, and I made wedding cakes. Nothing really to recommend myself in anything current. And so we got into, they called me up, and your dad says very nicely, oh, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is you're the first person we're interviewing. The bad news, you never hire the first person. I remember this.
I don't remember that.
I do. Anyway, and then...
See, I was even blunt in the old days.
So we start, yeah, it gets funnier. So anyway, we're talking about whatever, and nowadays you'd never get away with this. But anyway, they said something about the kids and could I travel? And I said, well, I've got 3 kids. I've got 2 girls and a boy. And your dad goes, hey, that's just like us. And Pam goes, how about Kelly? He goes, oh yeah, well, we got 4, but it was kind of a unique thing. Anyway, I left there and thought, whatever. It's, it's a small place, but they sound a little strange to me. So anyway, I left, went home, and then the next day, so I must mail the thing on a Monday, Tuesday. This was a Wednesday that I had the interview. And I knew you had interviews on Thursday. And Friday morning, I went out to breakfast with my girlfriends, and I came home, and my light was flashing. It was the beginning of the answering machines, so my light was flashing, and I answered it, and it was your dad. Says, we're trying to reach you. Could you give me a call? So I call him, and he goes, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you answered. Yeah, we want to offer you the job. I was like, oh, okay. When when are you thinking of starting? It was Monday. I went, Monday? It's already Friday. So I showed up on Monday. This girl who's pregnant is leaving, and she said she's going to teach me this job, which was about the lamest training I've ever seen. But anyway, so she shows me this stuff. She leaves exactly at 1 o'clock or whatever. And I thought, okay, well, that's it. I went to get my purse, and your dad goes, no, we're having a meeting. Okay. And then we get into this meeting, and he goes, oh, we've got this big show coming up in 6 weeks, and you and Dick here are in charge, and they're handing me all this stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said they were selling tickets for a lunch at the Hyatt, even back in 1986. This is ridiculous. But we're selling the tickets for $4.50 each, and you have got to come up with a lunch plan for $4.50, and we have to make money. And don't forget that there has to be a tip included in all this, and a service charge. At a Hilton? Are you kidding me? We served hot dogs. only thing I could come up with. But yeah, that kind of stuff, it was crazy. But yeah, it turned out good. We had a lot.
Well, that year, within 6 weeks, was the best organized show we'd put on for a real builder. And she's telling the story, but I think the chef started out with a price of $18 or
Something
so.
crazy like that. But ironically,
Lasagna.
well, we had that for lunch, I think, for the next day. But ironically, at that very first show, when I realized I was different than the rest of the staff, let's say, they had a metal sales or something, sponsored it, let's go to the races night at the Louisville racetrack, whatever it was called. Anyway, so everybody gets on the buses. I don't know, 800 builders were maybe there?
Probably, or more than that.
Okay, oh no, lots of people, a lot of buses. And of course, I'm talking to a couple of these builder guys who are just a hoot. I'm having a real good laugh with them, Eli Berry and his friend Chuck and whatever. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, I wonder what happened to the staff. Oh, well, whatever. So I'm sitting with Eli Berry, and then Stan Wagerson's over there, and Mormon, Freeholder was his name.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was his last name. Anyway, there was
Freeman.
this
Freeman Burkholder, wasn't it?
okay, there you go. Anyway, so there's this group of people. I'm hanging out with all these guys, having a good laugh about whatever was going on. And a little bit later, Bob Ostrom, who worked with us, came up and he goes, "We were wondering what happened to you. All the staff is back there." I went, "Yeah, that's fine. I'm having fun here with this group." And that's when I realized I just wasn't cut out to be the staff person. That was better. Just out hanging out with people. I just was in touch with Eli the other day. He was up for the World Beef Expo, and they didn't get a late start down. We were supposed to go to dinner, but I tried to meet up with him about once a year. That's 40 years later.
We saw that she could build relationships with these people and get along with them. She hadn't had any bad habits from selling ads because she hadn't sold ads, and we just thought she was the perfect person for this job. If she'd turned us down, I don't know. I don't know what we would have done. We'd have had to do something, but
it was ironic because and I don't know if you remember this, but maybe one of the last, I think we only did 4 shows with Roll Builder before you sold it, but we had this one company called Guardian Fasteners, maybe. Jay Levy, maybe was his name.
yeah, Jay Levy. Yeah,
okay.
You're right.
Anyway, and he always had one booth, and I said we were walking around looking at something. I said, "Jay, why the heck do you only have one booth when everybody else these big nail companies gets 2? And he goes, "I don't know." I said, "Well, I think you better think about it because these guys are going to leave in the dust." So the following year, he signed up for 2 booths, that was the last one he did. But and Dick came to me and goes, this Dick Pullman who worked with us, and he said, "How did you do that?" I said, "Well, because it's obvious that all the other screws were they? And they all had 2 booths. Wow. So to me, it was pointing out obvious.
For one thing, we got our butts out of the office, and we didn't sit there and wait for contributed material to come in. We went out and we visited with suppliers, and we visited with farriers, and we did stories on farriers, and we looked at everything. We got involved in. There's more to the farrier business than just trimming and shoeing horses. You got to be a businessman. You got to plan your schedule right, and we did a lot of things on that. They were sitting behind a desk all the time and just waiting for contributions to come in.
I think just talking to Helen Rhodes about it, like I said she would mail out postcards to people and say, "Oh, it's coming up time for this." I said, "You didn't mail them to everybody?" And she says, "No, because most people would never advertise." Well, if you don't ask them, how do you know? And she kind of sarcastically handed me the November directory and said, "Well, this is your customer base." So I opened up the book and started at A and started calling people because, some people said, "No, I don't. That's really not a good fit. We're in there because of whatever." But I made a note. Now I know why you're not an advertiser, and I know why you're a potential advertiser or why you were an advertiser maybe one time, and just, it took me a while, but I got through the whole book.